What is the value of Twitter? This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from MacVoices. Watch or listen to MacVoices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it's Tuesday night. It's 5 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Did I get that right? No, it's 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You can tell I don't know where I am. I'm sleep deprived. I am coming to you from the show floor at NAB in Las Vegas in the West Hall, the new hall, which is kind of exciting. I'm going to kind of rearrange things a little bit here because I'm only here for a few minutes or as long as the Wi-Fi holds out, whichever cuts first. I've still got a couple of people to talk to before the show closes for the evening here. So David will be taking over the hosting duties once again. David, thank you.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate you keeping the show going while my schedule keeps conflicting. So you know what? Since we have such a small panel right now, of course, David Ginsburg is here. David, good to have you as always.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. I'm glad you were able to make it on here.
I am too. It's if anybody saw the pre-show knew that we were jumping through hoops to get it done. Mr. Mark Fuccio is here with Mr. Musk looking over his head. Mark, good to see you.
Good to be back, Chuck. I hope you enjoy Las Vegas. Do you fly out tonight or tomorrow back to home?
I fly out at an ungodly hour tomorrow morning. But so to get back on East Coast time, it'll be even worse sleep deprivation. But what are you going to do? It's Vegas, right?
Exactly.
Warren Sklar is here. He's been brave enough to show up with tonight's topics. Warren, good to see you.
I'm not scared of nothing. It's good to see you too. Wish I was in Vegas actually. We miss it. We try to go at least once or twice a year. So yeah, we're due.
Things are opening back up, and it's pretty darn good. I think it really is. So let's see. Jim Ray is just
Jim Ray. I just let him
in. So
Jeff Gamet should be here shortly.
Good. Okay. Well, then
people need to be on time.
Yeah, really. What's wrong with these people?
Well, we could just sit here and talk and ask people to chop in before we start.
Yeah. So is Jim Ray there? Jim, good to have you. If you're here,
he's still loading up.
Yeah, my screen's a little weird.
There he is, without his hat.
Hello, Jim.
Hello.
He looks frazzled. You okay?
My background.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of do something I usually don't do. I'm going to provide, the kickoff for the discussion with my opinions, and then I'll be signing off and then let you guys make of it what you will. But it was sort of an interesting thing for me to be in Las Vegas at the convention center when the announcement came that Elon Musk is buying Twitter, simply because if you're not familiar with the situation here, the loop, the underground tunnel that was put in by Elon Musk's boring company is in full swing here at the show. And much to my surprise, it has been seamless. I can quote just a couple statistics I've learned from the drivers. They can move about 5,500 people an hour, give or take. There are about 70 vehicles in service at any one time. And it's been seamless. You literally, go to the station, walk in, they tell you which vehicle to get in, you get in, and they drive you to the next station through the tunnel, you pop out, and that's it. It is free for anyone with a conference badge. I'm not sure what the prices are for anything else, and of course it only goes to the convention center, north, central, south, and west. But just this week they said that the Boring Company has broken through the next tunnel over to Resorts World, which is across Las Vegas Boulevard. And I couldn't help but think, this is something that Elon Musk has done, and he's done well. He has PayPal to his credit. He has SpaceX to his credit. A lot of interesting things that Elon has done. There have been a few missteps, of course. And the thing that's cracked me up the most is watching the news coverage of this and talking to my left-leaning friends are concerned about him going right. My right-leaning friends are concerned about him going left. Everybody in the middle seems to just be confused. So I'm going to look forward to hearing what the panel says, has thoughts on this, because I kind of think it's a good thing. And at the very least, hey, it's not Mark Zuckerberg running Twitter. So there you go. So I want to say good hello to Jim and thank you for being here. Jeff Gammon, thank you for joining in. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Chuck.
Yes, I'm going
Hello.
to take the camera and give you just a quick pan of the show floor where I am. Lots of lights, lots of people. And with that, I am going to say thank you all for keeping the show going. I'll be back next week on a regular basis. A few stories to tell, a few other things, but thank you. Take care.
Chuck.
Sayonara, Chuck. Bye-bye.
See you,
No
Chuck.
fighting. No fighting, guys.
Oh, then I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out.
See you all.
All right, Chuck. Thanks so much. So I guess it'd probably be good just Chuck started off with the discussion about Twitter. Obviously, that's been probably one of the hottest discussions we've had in quite some time here. The press has just been relentless with it. Relates to is Twitter going to change? Are they going to let people they've banned come back? There's just so much speculation, and I'd like to just get going. And Mark, since you were here first, why don't you start off where your thoughts are with Twitter and what Elon's you think is gonna do?
Okay, well, no, thank you for giving me the first pitch. I think if you look at Twitter, it seems that the company and the product has been stagnant for many, many, many years.
Yep.
And it seems their recent innovation is giving people the ability to spend $3 a month for the privilege of having a spell checker. So I just don't get it. I think part of it is due to the fact that they really haven't had a full-time CEO. I don't even know if they had a half-time CEO in Jack Dorsey. So I think that just shows how out of touch or whatever or ineffectual their board is. So Twitter, there's a lot of noise out there if you don't know how to use it. There's a lot of noise out there if you want to expose yourself to it. You can create a lot of noise, or you can create a lot of value. So I think it's not a uniphase, single thing that everybody looks at. It's multifaceted. The fact that Elon is coming along and buying it, hey, the guy's putting $21 billion of his own money into it. And if he wants to buy it, I have no problem with that. Some of the little bits of things that he said, I think are admirable, where he's saying that, he wants to, unmask and make public, their algorithms for how they decide what things that, they will block. And looking at some of their financials, up through 19 to 20, they had, good growth, both in top line revenue as well as bottom line profits. Then going to 2021, Jack, I think, just let them blow it. They just, spent, enormous amounts everywhere, all over the company, and profits went down as a result. So to me, the big question is, are they just fat and ineffectual, or, out of the thousands of people they hired, God help us if they're actively involved in content moderation, because if that's true, Elon may have bought himself a set of problems instead of an opportunity. So I think we'll have to see what comes of it. I think that to me, yes, going back to what Chuck was saying, there's a lot of hysteria out there, but I think almost every news story has that sort of hysteria. I think that's a sign of our times. Everyone immediately goes to doom and gloom and the most dire forecasts, because that's a function of you got to make that in order to break through all the noise. So I think people are making it scarier and worse and more horrible than it's actually going to be. So I think we'll have to see what happens. I think things of some of this things of saying, okay, well, I'm going to validate, so you have to be a real person. I think why the hell Jack Dorsey and all the geniuses, who couldn't do something like that is just beyond me. So I think, it's valuable property, and I think it's away from just ineffectual or, I'll be kind, ineffectual, at worst, incompetent management. And I look forward to seeing what it evolves into.
And I think they were looking for what was in the best interest of the stockholders too. I mean, they're getting $54 plus a share for all their stock from the buyout.
Yep, 54.20.
54.20, and even Twitter CEO applauded the deal and thinks it's going to make Twitter more relevant in the world. So there's lots of things, and of course the free speech is going to be the bedrock. As we were looking at the article from The Verge here, is going to be the big discussion. Jeff, what do you? I'm sure you have lots of thoughts on this topic, as many of us do.
No.
Meh.
Okay. So, I think that the meltdowns that people are having just across the board right now about this makes sense. And the reason they make sense is because it's human nature. We as a species have a hard time with the unknown. And there are definitely unknowns happening here. Therefore, it's going to trigger people into speculating the worst, from whatever their perspective is, the worst. I think that Elon has bought himself, or is buying himself, into a serious financial bind, and that's because he has to come up with the money to pay back the loans that he's taking out to buy Twitter. And Twitter has I think it's out of the last 10 years, 8 of those years, it has not shown a profit.
Right.
And I feel like the profit year that happened, Mark, what was it? Last year before? Sorry, I hit you with your mouth full.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because today is National Pretzel Day, everyone. So,
Oh man,
have a snack. So
I brought my popcorn.
Yeah. So I think, so they've been profitable. I believe they've had 2 profitable years in their existence, but they're just barely profitable. But that's not to say they couldn't be more profitable. But anyway,
right. Yeah. I mean, of course, there's a potential to be more profitable. Taking the company private does create an opportunity, potentially, to make the company more profitable, because there won't be the restrictions that are in place just inherently with being a publicly traded company, where your primary goal is to the shareholders. So that could create new opportunities at work in Twitter's benefit. We will have to wait and see. But I don't think Twitter's going to be able to turn a profit in time for Elon to start paying back this debt he's incurring. And that's going to have repercussions, and both for Elon and for Twitter. And I think that there is a possibility that Elon could be putting Twitter in a position where they, in a few years, have to do a fire sale just to pay back the debt that he's taking on now. And if that happens, that's just a tragedy. Now, as far as the free speech part goes, okay, well, excuse me, even Elon says he doesn't really know what that means. So when someone says, well, what does it mean, for free speech on Twitter? Well, at this point, we can all honestly say no one has any idea. As far as, can Elon craft a system that's better at dealing with the problems we see on Twitter today? I would be absolutely stunned if that were the case. This is a problem that every social network deals with all the time. And if Elon thinks that he can come up with something better than Twitter has today, then then he is missing key pieces of information. And of course he is, because he hasn't been on the inside yet. So his take, I believe, on what can and shouldn't be allowed as public discourse on Twitter, that's going to change once he's in a leadership position. And if he changes it as a rollback to what we had just a few years ago, then we're being set up for multiple Gamergate incidents all over again. And Gamergate was a huge turning point for Twitter as far as security and control over what's allowed to be said on their platform. And it was a necessary pivot point because it showed just how dangerous the unregulated speech on the platform can be. And this isn't just Twitter. This is all of the platforms. I mean, Reddit started as a place where everyone can just say what they want. And it turns out people are just crappy. And you give them an online platform and they're going to just drive to the lowest possible place they can as quickly as they can. And that just sucks. And this is why we can't have nice things. Facebook is dealing with the same problems. And Reddit is highly moderated now, and rightly so, because there's just no way you could have a functional, usable platform without that moderation. It's there on Facebook. Getter, when it launched, the idea was, oh, these people that are blocking our speech, that are infringing on our rights, they can't do that anymore. Excuse me. Boy, Getter had to do a 180 on that super fast and start moderating what's said on their platform. Every platform has to do it. And I think for Twitter, Mark, you pointed out Twitter has kind of stagnated. I think the reason that they appear to have stagnated is because they have to put so much of the company resources into moderation that it prevents them from being able to do the other things they want, which is give us cool new features. And occasionally they can throw something out that doesn't take a lot of resources, like the whole blue thing. And I think that
or 140 to 280 characters.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, they throw us a bone every now and then, and then everything else is all hands on deck trying to deal with the big problem. And I don't think Twitter is inherently in a position where they've been trying to control politics. I don't think Facebook really was either. It just kind of worked out that way because that's what drove revenue. And now we're saying, okay, well, driving the revenue, maybe that leads to some problems down the road, like how people perceive a social media platform in relation to a political election. So this is, on one hand, a mess, and on the other hand, a situation where we could have a good outcome, but who knows? I mean, there are too many variables right now for this whole situation. We just can't really say how this is going to play out. I have more thoughts, but I'll stop for now.
Today's edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter. Visit macvoices.com/newsletter today, sign up, and stay up to date.
I have thoughts. So I'll start with him taking over the company, and then we'll do the other part. But I'm not clairvoyant. I have no idea what's going to happen in the future with this guy and what he does with the company. And I don't, I don't know enough about him to make that kind of judgment. I don't know enough about Twitter to make that kind of judgment. I don't use that either. But what I do know is a couple things. I use plenty of products during my day, every day. And, some more than others. And I could tell you very little of the presidents and owners of these companies, of the products I use. And I have no idea the man they are, the woman they are, or what they are. There's a few things that make the headlines, right? That, I still like Chick-fil-A, but the headlines are they're anti-gay, or very religious and things like that. And you get those kind of headlines, and you're like, am I going to stop? You ask yourself, you talk to yourself, am I going to stop eating this chicken, or am I going to start using this product because the president feels this way, or the owner feels this way? And the answer is, it depends on you, right? That's your choice. So again, as far as Elon goes, he seems like, he actually has a vested interest in doing something. Jack Dorsey didn't make that much news in the time he was there. Some things here and there. I know less about Jack Dorsey than I know about Elon, because he's more vocal. So yeah, as far as I'm taking over, and the last point about that is, a lot of people, I think, blend together whether they trust somebody to run a company or whether they like somebody. And I think what they'll do is they'll use them to kind of build up their argument and say, Elon Musk, I don't trust him. You say that because it's scary. You say that because you want to, you try, you just like right wings and left wings. All we're doing is trying to convince our wings that, we're the right ones. And that's what we're doing. So when we say we don't trust somebody, we're convincing somebody else in our camp. Yeah, you're right. I don't trust them either. And that's how things, that's how things get overturned or changed. So it's not a bad thing. It's just a thing we do. So for free speech, the Jeff said, Twitter's trying to figure out what free speech means on Twitter, but I don't think we know as a country, as far as what I could read on it, I don't think we know as a country what free speech means in general. The Constitution was written very up to interpretation. Is that what they say? So a lot of things, change based on events that happened. Free speech for what happened with the, January 6th or things before it, will evolve. There'll be some, things coming down the line that say, okay, free speech, you could say this, but you can't, say this that might get this result. And we do that. And that's why laws are passed, and free, when we pass laws, free speech is affected by that. So yeah, I think that, Twitter's, a website is a thing. We're not handing Elon Musk the key to the universe or the key to the country. No. It's not this golden shrine. Well, we're actually handing him something that literally you could turn off and it will go away, just like Clubhouse did that one time, right? It's literally so
that many times.
Yeah, but the first time it just kind of like, people were on it, then they weren't. And you know what? It literally, it's a bunch of servers somewhere. It's computers with data on it, and that's all it is. It's not like, it's not in your home, and all, it's a mass effort to rid the country of or the planet of Twitter. It's not. It's easy. It's a very easy fix. And you know what? If he burns it into the ground, they'll turn it off. People won't use it. Something else will be there, just like evolution.
Jim, you got the last. You have the word. You've been quiet. What are your thoughts?
Muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, that's Elon turned off his mic.
But I just said I'd better unmute. How is my sound, by the way? Is it okay? Can you hear me?
It's good.
Yep.
It's good.
Okay, good.
Not as good as Chuck's. It was good.
That's a joke.
That's a joke.
Jeff said a lot of things probably better than I could. I will take a bit of issue with what you just said, Warren, about it's just a website. Mm-hmm. That, of course, on one sense is true, but it's also a community. And if, Twitter, like if it was to go away, I would lose contact with quite a few people.
I feel that way about Facebook, and people want that thing down all the time. That's my thing with Facebook.
Well, I never got on Facebook, so that's, and I've only been on Twitter for 4 years. I got on in 2018, and I was sort of an anti-social media person, and much to my surprise, I'd say Twitter has been Twitter has worked really well for me. So I don't know what's going to happen. Probably no one knows, including Elon. Well, he probably has a better idea. He at least has some idea of what it is he wants to do. But my suspicion is that most of the possible outcomes are not going to be good for at least my Twitter community, whatever that means. Certainly if, and it's interesting because when I joined in 2018, a lot of people were, it was all this like, I'm out, and people were very upset with Twitter. And some people did, there are people that, I know had been on here a long time and they did disappear. Some of them eventually came back, like, several years later. Some of them probably didn't. So it's a little frustrating for me because it works for me now, and I don't know, it's like, yeah, oh well, maybe, yeah, should I go on Facebook or I have a micro.blog subscription, and I poke around on there, but I am not connected with that found the way I have on Twitter. So who knows? The other point is, free speech, as far as the Constitution goes, it has nothing to do with Twitter or any other private company. The First Amendment restricts the government. It doesn't restrict private companies. So it's not, doesn't really, have anything to do with, as far as what the First Amendment means, that's up to 9 men in robes in Washington.
Can I just say one thing though? Free speech does affect private companies plenty. You can't, you can't go into your office and start saying, hateful things, racist things, things like that. You will get in trouble. And that's, you could say, hey, free speech, and I'm on private property and I'm working. That's not going to fly.
True. Yeah. Free speech
you're
doesn't
not getting
mean free from repercussions.
Well, then what are we talking about? It
means the government cannot stop you. You can go stand on the street corner and say hateful things, and you can't be arrested for that. That's what it means.
As far as I know, if it's an imminent, if it's a direct threat, or it could cause a safety issue, it can. So if I stand on the street and say, I am going to kill the president, or I'm going to kill you, or if I look to a cop and say, I'm going to kill you, I don't know, maybe.
You're not actually being,
again, the movie theater is a big thing. That's where we go back to. If we go to a movie theater and say fire, that's not allowed.
That is completely false. That is something that Louis Brandeis said as an aside, and it wasn't part of a Supreme Court decision. And it had nothing, it was just sort of a side comment that he made that's actually not valid. And he even retracted it several years later, but somehow that has like gotten completely embedded into our zeitgeist. But if you look it up, that is actually not a, binding Supreme Court legal. It's not true.
If that's not, but I'm pretty sure you can't just say anything that comes to your mind in public. If you could find, I don't, maybe I'm wrong. maybe you could stand there and say literally anything you want in public and not have a problem.
You were certainly protected from speaking out against the government. And I mean, that's one of the core ideas behind freedom of speech in the United States, which is the government can't stop you from speaking positively or negatively about the government as a whole.
I think we're all talking about direct threats because that's what it's going to.
Well, and direct threats, that's a different thing.
And we'll get to that.
We have regulated speech in the United States.
Right. But let me get back to direct threats because that's where it all comes down to on what we're talking about on Twitter and Facebook. Because direct threats aren't always direct, right? And when President Trump says, wink, wink, let's go to the Capitol and do some things, is that a direct threat? And that's what we're watching the news now, and that's what they're trying to figure out, right? That's what they're trying to charge him with at this point, is whether he organized an actual direct threat. So they're going to go through his tweets and everything like that and say, is anywhere in here does he say we are going to do this and this and this? And now we got to figure out, where's the free speech?
Boy, if you've seen something where Donald Trump is going to be held accountable for something he said in a tweet, I have not seen anything like that. And
well, that's what they're doing now. That's the trials right now.
Who?
Literally right now they are.
No, there is no trial about what he is saying in tweets. And
they're going through each other's. Literally, they just said that they're going through everybody else's, like his daughter and Rumsfeld and everything like that.
First of all, they're going through text messages.
The discussion of the place Twitter holds in our society and the value of Twitter continues in the next edition of Mac Voices. I'm only sorry I wasn't here to be part of it. Some of the opinions expressed get pretty strong and pretty intense. So, next time on Mac Voices, more on the value of Twitter. I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.